Welcome to her revenge. This story takes place in Texas. My name is Charlotte, and if you had walked into my parents' house that night, you would have thought we were just another happy American family celebrating a birthday. There were balloons, a cake with cheap frosting, and a pile of presents on the dining table. All for me. It was my birthday, and for once I had let myself hope that maybe this year would be different. That maybe I wouldn't feel like the family's punchline. I was standing near the table holding a small wrapped box I just received from a coworker. Something I'd been genuinely excited about. Before I could even sit down to open it properly, my sister's son stormed over, eyes glinting with mischief he clearly thought made him look cool. He snatched the gift right out of my hands, ripped it away like it belonged to him, and in one sharp, ugly motion, he threw it onto the floor so hard the box slid under a chair. "Mom says we don't take things from losers," he announced proudly, his little voice slicing through the room. For a second, everything slowed down. I swear I could hear the sound of my own heart cracking in my chest. Then the laughter hit. My sister burst out laughing first, that high-pitched giggle she always uses when she wants attention. My mother put a hand over her mouth, but she was smiling. My father didn't even bother pretending. He laughed openly like this was the best joke he'd heard in years. "Relax," my sister called out, waving her hand. "It's just a kid's joke," my father added, his voice cold and flat. "If you can't take a joke, then leave." I felt my face burn. For a moment, I actually considered apologizing just to keep the peace, just like I always did. Instead, I closed my mouth, grabbed my coat, and quietly walked to the door. No yelling, no drama, just the sound of my heels on the tile as I left my own birthday behind. That night, when I got home, my phone didn't stop buzzing. Calls, messages, notifications from the family group chat. Everyone suddenly had something to say after the joke they just laughed at. And they had no idea that this time I wasn't going to swallow it and move on. This time I was done being their loser. Before I tell you what they wrote in those messages and what I did after I walked out of that house, tell me what time is it for you right now and where are you watching this from? I want to see just how far a story about family and the word loser can travel. By the time I dropped my bag onto the couch, my phone was already lighting up like a Christmas tree, a notification from the family group chat, another from my father, missed calls from my mother. As a single mom in her mid-30s who works full-time, I'm used to my phone blowing up, but this time it wasn't clients or deadlines. It was the people who had just watched my birthday gift get thrown on the floor and laughed. I sank onto the couch, kicked off my shoes, and finally unlocked the screen. The group chat was already active. "You really made things awkward tonight." That was from my sister. "No sorry, no acknowledgement, just blame." Another text from my father. "You embarrassed the whole family." Storming out over a joke. My mother added a softer, guilt-laced line. "Honey, you know how kids are. Don't overthink it. Your sister is very stressed. Maybe you could have handled it better." I stared at the screen, disbelief and rage swirling in my chest. They weren't just ignoring what happened. They were rewriting it. A small ping came in. A private message from my sister. "If you're going to act like this, maybe don't come over for family events until you learn to chill." Alex didn't mean anything by it. But he had quoted her word for word. "Mom says we don't take things from losers." That sentence didn't come from a child's mind. It came from hers. I set the phone down and leaned back, closing my eyes. For years, I had bent over backwards for my family. When Linda, my sister, couldn't pay her rent, I transferred money without asking for it back. When she maxed out her credit card, I helped her consolidate the debt so her credit score wouldn't be ruined. When our parents needed help with medical bills, I picked up extra shifts, took on freelance work, and cut my own grocery budget just so they wouldn't lose sleep. I was the responsible one, the strong one, the survivor. And somehow that had slowly turned into the one we can use. And now apparently the loser. It wasn't just this one night. It was every time my promotions were brushed off as "you're lucky you don't have a real husband to worry about." Every time Sophia, my daughter, was treated like an afterthought compared to Alex, the golden child. And tonight it had all crystallized into that one word: loser. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice message from my father. I stared at it for a moment, then pressed play, holding the phone close to my ear. "Charlotte," he began with the heavy sigh he always used before lecturing me. "You need to toughen up. Your sister has enough on her plate without you making everything about yourself." It was a joke. "You walking out like that was disrespectful. If you keep this up, don't be surprised if you're not invited to family gatherings anymore." There it was. The threat of exile from a family that had never really made room for me in the first place. I listened to the message twice. The second time, instead of crying, I hit the say button. Then I went back to the chat and scrolled up, slowly rereading every line: the dismissal, the gaslighting, the way the blame shifted to me as naturally as breathing. And for the first time in my life, instead of wondering what I'd done wrong, I wondered what I'd allowed. I opened a new note on my phone and started typing. Dates, amounts of money I'd lent. Times I'd been called for emergencies that turned out to be poor planning or overspending. I listed out the months I'd covered part of my parents' mortgage when my dad forgot to mention they were behind. As I wrote, the picture became painfully clear. I wasn't the loser. I was the safety net. I was the one they leaned on when things got bad. The one they quietly depended on. And then mocked when it was convenient. Anger burned through my veins, but this time it felt clean, sharp, almost clarifying. I opened my messages and typed back, fingers steady. To the group chat, I wrote, "I walked out because having my birthday gift thrown on the floor and being called a loser in front of everyone isn't a joke. If that's your idea of family humor, I'm not interested. I won't be discussing this any further tonight." Then, after a moment of hesitation, I added, "Going forward, I'll be rethinking what I contribute to this family emotionally and financially." I hit send and watched the little delivered check marks appear. Instantly, my sister started typing, then stopped, then started again. A single bubble appeared in the family chat. "Wow, drama queen." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my phone's recording app and created a new folder labeled Family. I moved my father's voicemail into it. I copied screenshots of the worst messages into another folder, not because I wanted to destroy them yet, but because I was finally done letting them rewrite reality. Have you ever had that moment sitting alone in your living room when you realize your biggest bullies share your last name? When you realize you taught them that behavior was okay because you kept staying, kept paying, kept smiling? That was the night I decided I wouldn't be their quiet loser anymore. That was the night I began to plan. A few days later, my mother texted me, "We're having everyone over on Sunday. Your father wants to clear the air. Please come." The old version of me would have gone, apologized for overreacting, and brought dessert to make peace. This new version sat on the edge of the bed, reading the message over and over, weighing whether it was worth it. I knew what clear the air meant in my family. They would tell me why I was wrong until I believed it. But something in me wanted to look them in the eye one last time. Not to beg for acceptance, but to show them I was done playing my role. So on Sunday, I dressed simply in dark jeans and a plain blouse. Nothing fancy, nothing that could be mocked. I slipped my phone into my pocket with the recording app already installed and pinned to the home screen. Part of me felt ridiculous recording my own family, but another part of me knew I needed proof, if only for myself. When I arrived at my parents' house, the air was thick with forced normalcy. My father sat at the head of the dining table, arms crossed. My mother fluttered around with a tray of snacks. Linda was already there, scrolling through her phone, Alex beside her with an expensive-looking tablet in his hands. He didn't even glance up at me. "You came," my mother said with a fragile smile. "Good. Sit. We can talk about this like adults." Like adults. In her language meant don't raise your voice. Don't make us uncomfortable. And absolutely don't make us look bad. I took a seat across from Linda and pulled my chair in slowly, my spine straight. So my father began clearing his throat. Your behavior the other night was unacceptable. My eyebrow lifted almost on its own. My behavior? He nodded sternly. You walked out of your own birthday dinner. You made a scene over something that could have been handled privately. Your sister has a lot of stress and you accused her of teaching her son to call you a loser. That was uncalled for. I felt a small, almost bitter smile tug at my lips. He didn't just call me a loser, I replied evenly. He said, Mom says we don't take things from losers. That's a quote. The room shifted. Subtle, but noticeable. Alex finally looked up briefly, then down again. Linda rolled her eyes. Oh my God, are we really doing this? She scoffed. He's a kid. He missed me. I might have said something like, we don't take pity gifts, but losers, come on. Before I could respond, my father jumped in. Regardless, your reaction was wrong. You made everyone uncomfortable. You know how family is. We joke. We tease. You're too sensitive. Too sensitive. The words echoed in my skull, layered over years of similar phrases. You're too emotional. You're too dramatic. You're too intense. I nodded slowly, then reached into my bag and pulled out a small folder. You want to talk about family? I said quietly. Let's talk about what family actually looks like. I opened the folder and laid out printed bank statements on the table, the ink still sharp. Transfers from my account to Linda's. Payments from me to my parents' mortgage lender. Dates. Amounts. Notes. When you were 2 months behind on your rent last year, Linda, who paid that? I asked, tapping one of the statements. When your car got repossessed and you needed a down payment on a new one, who sent the money? When Dad's medical bills came in and there was a gap after insurance, who covered it? No one spoke. The only sound was the rustle of paper and the faint hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. My mother's face palled. Linda's cheeks flushed an angry red. My father's jaw tightened. That has nothing to do with this, he snapped. Oh, it has everything to do with this, I replied, my voice steady. Because for years I've given and given to this family, money, time, support, and not once did I throw it in your faces. Not once did I call you losers for needing help. I didn't even ask for it back, but now suddenly I'm the loser and I'm the one who should toughen up. I glanced around the table, meeting each of their eyes. Tell me, if I'm such a loser, why did you all need me so much? For once, the silence worked in my favor. My mother swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly. Charlotte, that's not fair, she whispered. We never forced you to help, didn't you? I asked. What about the guilt? The calls at midnight? You're the only one we can count on? The implication that if I didn't help, I didn't love you enough, that I was selfish. Linda shifted in her seat, eyes flicking nervously to the papers. You're making this so dramatic, she muttered. We're family. Families help each other. You're not supposed to keep receipts. Families also don't humiliate each other for sport. I shot back. Families don't teach their kids that their aunt is a loser. You want to talk about receipts? Fine. Let's talk about respect. When was the last time any of you respected what I do? The career I built on my own. The way I raised Sophia. The way I've held this family together financially more times than I can count. My phone was in my pocket, the recording app quietly capturing every word. I didn't know if I'd ever use it, but just knowing I had it was enough. Charlotte, my father said slowly, his tone now more cautious. Are you threatening us? Is that what this is? I let out a short, humorless laugh. No, I answered. I'm not threatening you. I'm informing you. The bank statements, the voicemail you left me, the messages in the group chat, those are just reminders for me in case I ever start doubting my decision. Because after what happened at my birthday, after hearing my nephew call me a loser and watching you all laugh, I realized something. I've been investing in a family that doesn't see my worth. I gathered the papers back into the folder and snapped it shut. So, here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm done. There will be no more transfers, no more last-minute bailouts, no more me quietly fixing your problems while you mock me behind my back or in front of your kids. I will show up for birthdays and holidays if and only if there is basic respect. And if there isn't, then I won't show up at all. Linda scoffed again, but there was panic in her eyes now. You can't just cut us off, she said. That's not how family works. I looked at her calmly. What you call family feels a lot like exploitation, I answered. So, yes, I can. Have you ever sat across from someone who has taken you for granted for years and watched the realization dawn on their face that you're serious this time? That they can't just guilt or laugh you back into submission? As I stood up from that table, I knew there was no going back. And honestly, for the first time, that thought didn't terrify me. It felt like freedom. In the days after that family meeting, my phone was strangely quiet. No late-night calls about emergencies. No texts asking, can you spot me until next week? Just silence. At first, it felt eerie, like the calm before a storm. And part of me wondered if I'd finally pushed them too far, if I'd officially become the villain in the story they tell other people. But then receipts from automatic payments started popping up on my banking app. Subscriptions, bills, things I had almost forgotten I was covering. My parents' home insurance, a small monthly transfer to Linda's account that we'd set up years ago just until she gets back on her feet. And the family phone plan I had been paying for entirely, including Linda's and my parents' lines. I sat at my kitchen table, laptop open, bank app on my phone, and made a list, a real one this time. I wrote down every recurring charge connected to my family, every temporary favor that had quietly become permanent. As I stared at the list, I realized something bitterly funny. If I stopped all of it, I would actually be able to save for things I wanted for once. A better apartment, a proper vacation with Sophia, maybe even night classes to move further up in my career. No more. I murmured to myself and started clicking. Cancel, remove card, end autopay, disconnect line. With each confirmation screen, a small knot loosened in my chest. It was terrifying. Yes. Not because they would suffer. They'd have to adjust like adults, but because I was redefining what kind of daughter and sister I was allowed to be. The obedient provider was dying. In her place, someone new was being born. I called the bank and removed myself as a secondary contact from my parents' mortgage account. I called the phone carrier and split my line from the family plan. The representative asked, "Are you sure this will increase their monthly bill?" I swallowed, guilt nudging at my ribs, then answered, "Yes, I'm sure." When it was done, I sat back and let out a long, slow breath. It felt like I'd been wearing a heavy coat made of other people's problems and had finally shrugged it off. Of course, the storm arrived right on schedule. That evening, my sister texted, "Why is my phone bill suddenly higher?" I didn't answer right away. A few minutes later, another message. "Did you mess with the plan?" I replied simply. I removed my card. "You'll need to pay for your own line now." The typing bubble appeared instantly. "Are you serious? That's so petty." "Over what? A joke?" I stared at the screen, shaking my head. "Over a lifetime," I thought out loud. I typed over a pattern. "I told you things were going to change. This is one of those changes." Her response came cold and fast. "You're unbelievable. After everything Mom and Dad did for you growing up, this is how you repay them. You're going to let them struggle." I almost laughed. Everything they did for you growing up was a funny way to describe raising their own child. But I didn't type that. Instead, I wrote, "I've helped for years. I'm not responsible for everyone anymore. They're adults. So are you." That's when my father called. No text this time, just a direct hit. I let it go to voicemail. A minute later,